News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Fed officials leaving interest rates unchanged, continuing to pencil in 2 rate cuts in 2025. That and the Fed's comment about lowering the outlook for economic growth but boosting the outlook for inflation. Well, that triggered a little bit of uncertainty on Wall Street. We had a mixed finish. The Dow closing down just about 0.1%. We check the markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. S&P 500 closing down fractionally. NASDAQ closing up 0.1%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury just about 4.39%. Fed officials, as I mentioned, leaving interest rates unchanged. Why the wait? Fed Chair Jay Powell.
We feel like the right thing to do is to be where we are, where our policy stance is, and just learn more. And in particular, we feel like we're going to learn a great deal more over the summer on tariffs. We hadn't expected them to show up much by now, and they haven't. And we will see whether, to the extent to which they do over coming months. And I think that's going to inform our thinking.
Officials downgraded their estimates for economic growth this year to 1.4% from 1.7%, while lifting their forecast for inflation. And 7 officials now foresee no interest rate cut this year. Traders pricing in a 74% probability the Fed will lower interest rates by September. President Trump earlier said a 2.5 percentage point Fed rate cut would have been nice.
Europe had 10 cuts, and we had none. And I guess he's a political guy. I don't know. He's a political guy who's not a smart person, but he's costing the country a fortune.
Trump also telling reporters Powell will be out of the Fed when his current term expires in about 9 months. In the Mideast, the U.S. working on evacuations for U.S. citizens. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee saying on X the government is working on flights and cruise ship departures for U.S. citizens who want to get out of Israel as the fighting between Israel and Iran continues. The U.S. Embassy is evacuating mission personnel. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei is threatening irreparable damage if the U.S. joins Israel in attacking Iran. President Trump holding another meeting with advisors in the White House Situation Room, declining to say earlier whether the U.S. plans to get involved.
I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine.
Trump to reporters there. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the military is ready and prepared with options regarding a possible attack on Iran to restrain the country's nuclear program.
They should have made a deal. President Trump's word means something. The world understands that. And at the Defense Department, our job is to stand ready and prepared with options, and that's precisely what we're doing.
Hegseth testifying on Capitol Hill about defense spending. Microsoft is planning to axe thousands of jobs, particularly in sales, as part of the company's latest move to trim its workforce amid heavy spending on artificial intelligence, according to sources. Cuts expected to be announced early next month. The Supreme Court has upheld a law from the Tennessee state legislature that bans gender-affirming health care for minors. Hofstra law professor James Sample breaks down the argument from the state of Tennessee.
The Tennessee legislature here acted in the Tennessee legislature's view and in the views that they expressed at oral argument and in their briefing, based on a perspective held by the legislature of the state of Tennessee that the science is unclear with respect to these treatments, that the possible side effects and long-term consequences of these treatments is in some instances, in Tennessee's view, not reversible and potentially harmful, and that individual children and their doctors, along with their parents, are not qualified to make those decisions at the ages that these decisions were being made.
And the vote was 6-3, with Chief Justice John Roberts writing the majority opinion. And we're hearing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is considering asking a key government vaccine advisory panel to examine shots that contain aluminum adjuvant ingredients. That could impact at least 24 vaccines on the market. Shots for polio, hepatitis A and B, HPV, meningitis, whooping cough, and others could be impacted. Sources say a final decision hasn't yet been made. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. This is Bloomberg.